Hey, what's going on guys, and welcome back to another review video. Today I'll be sharing with you guys my opinion on the Kindred Ties Banner Part 1. This one features Chrom and Peony. We're going to start things off with Crumb from Fire Emblem's Awakening. Great game by the way, definitely recommend playing it. Anyways, Crumb is a bit unique as he shares a similar mechanic as Gala Alex. He has this skill gauge bar on the top of the screen. This bar is filled by connecting with normal attacks, and the bar stacks up to 3 times. The difference between him and Alex regarding this mechanic is that not all of Crumb's skills are dependent on this bar. Only his skill 2 is, and I'll go over that in a second. First, let's cover his skill 1. Exalted Sword costs 2,304 SP, very low cost, extremely spammable. It deals 1 hit of 281% flame damage, which is terribly low. That's like one of the lowest damage mods in this game. You know, like 700% is already considered pretty low, so 281% is definitely considered extremely low. Additionally, it grants 1 stack of Flames Awakening, and this can stack up to 3 times. Basically, these Flames Awakening stacks will progressively increase the power of Ether, his skill 2, and using Ether will consume all stacks of Flames Awakening. What this means is that if you have 1 stack, 2 stack, or 3 stacks and you use skill 2, all your Flames Awakening stacks will be used. Depending on how many stacks you have will determine the power of Ether. So essentially, skill 1 is going to be the skill that you're going to be using very often. It's going to be your bread and butter iframing skill. You don't really use it for damage, as its main purpose is to stack Flames Awakening for powering up Ether. Ether costs 2,650 SP, deals 2 hits of flame damage, restores HP, afflicted foes takes more damage, and the strength will increase based on Flames Awakening stacks, which we already know. The rest of it is hella long, so I'm just going to summarize it up for you. Basically, Ether consumes all Flames Awakening stacks and only 1 bar in his reservoir. But when Crumb gets 3 stacks of Flames Awakening and 3 stacks in his reservoir, you know, the bar on the top of the screen, then Ether will turn into Awakening Ether. Awakening Ether deals a total of a little bit over 5,100% flame damage. If the foe is afflicted with a status ailment such as burn, they'll deal a little bit over 6,000 flame damage. If you use Ether with only 1 stack or 2 stacks, then it's not going to deal a lot of damage and he's just going to waste all his stacks. Make sure that Crumb has 3 stacks of Flames Awakening and 3 stacks in his reservoir before using Ether, okay? It's going to be really important that you pair up Crumb with a burner such as Marth, Zania, or whoever else that can inflict burn, because Crumb is unable to do it himself. Everything about Crumb revolves around setting up. That's like the theme of this kit, you know? He has to spam skill 1 until he gets 3 stacks, then he has to C2 4 strike until his reservoir caps out at 3. That's when you can finally use skill 2 and hit the enemy for really big damage. And you better make sure that you land both of Ether's hits, because that's going to be Crumb's main source of damage. If you whiff it, well, there goes at least 500,000 damage. Might even be more than 500,000 depending on the setup. I know there's that one Reddit post where a team got Crumb to hit 6 million damage with Ether, but of course that's not a realistic number for regular games. Realistically, it should be hitting around 500,000 to 1 million, I would say. By the way, since this skill has a jumping animation, that does mean that you can jump over purples with it, such as Hyde and Midgar's tornadoes. The timing is a bit harder compared to Yuden's and Marth's skill 2, so it will take a little bit of practice to get used to. Now, he has a unique co-ability, HP and defense increased by 10% each. This is straight up better than 15% HP or defense given from Axe and Lances in terms of defensive capabilities. Something interesting to note is that this co-ability does stack with the Axe and Lance co-ability, so if you want to make someone extremely tanky, then you can add Crumb onto your bench. For instance, if you want more HP for Grace or something, then you can stick a Lance character and Crumb onto her co-ability bench. Chain co-ability is kind of like whatever for me. It's 8% win res for 15 seconds every time the character burns an enemy. Could have some niche uses for surviving certain attacks on burners, but I mean otherwise it's kind of like whatever. His abilities are kind of plain. He has full HP equals 15% strength. Full HP abilities are kind of hard to maintain since, you know, if you take even 1 damage then the ability turns off. Lucky for Crumb, Ether does restore HP, so Crumb has a way to self-sustain and top himself off, so that's pretty good. Make sure that he's always topped off to maintain and optimize max DPS. Sleep res 100%. This makes him a perfect ally for Marth in regards to Expert Volk and probably Masters Volk as well. Rightful King doesn't really do anything, it just allows Chrom to be able to use Awakening Ether once he has 3 stacks of Flames Awakening and in his reservoir. That's about it, doesn't do anything else. I feel like this ability should have been part of his skill too, but it is what it is. It does seem like a wasted slot, but I'm sure it's going to turn into something really good when he eventually gets his Mana Spiral, considering that this is a unique ability. Crumb is a very unique character. He's the definition of putting all your eggs into one basket. Very fun to play, and thankfully his DPS is quite good, but he requires some setup. He's pretty reliant on allies being able to afflict foes for him since he cannot do that on his own. However, it is worth it at the end. If the surrounding pieces are there, then Crumb can dish out above average damage. He's not going to deal as much damage as Marth, but he is for sure better than Yuden. A personal problem I have with Crumb from testing him out in Masters High Midgard is that he doesn't have much options. It's like once he has 3 stacks of everything, then you're forced to use Ether immediately since that's his main source of damage. Like for example, the way my rotations went, I would get Awakening Ether up when High Midgard had around 60% left on his overdrive bar. If I used Awakening Ether there, then I wouldn't be able to get Awakening Ether up for the break. If I don't use it there, then it'll take a while for me to break, and saving Awakening Ether is just a loss of DPS, so it does get a little bit wonky at times. If you can look past that fact, then he's really good and very fun to play. I would definitely recommend trying your chances at getting him if you enjoy using swords. Next up is Peony. As her class title says, she's a support unit. She doesn't deal much DPS, but she has tons of buffs. If you take a look at the mods on her skills, they aren't very high. Her skill 1 only deals 1 hit of 417%, and skill 2 deals 962%, which isn't that good for a 6,500 SP costing skill. Good thing damage isn't everything because her skill 1 can inflict paralysis, so that's good for enabling Paralyzed Punisher. It also has skill shift. Phase 2 of the skill shift increases your defense by 10%, so that means Veiling Crown is a print that you should consider using on her. And phase 3 is a 10% strength AoE buff. Skill 2 has an AoE buff effect as well, 10% strength and 10% attack speed. So team buffs everywhere. Her value depends on how good her allies are basically. The stronger her allies, the better the rotations, and then the better Peony is. Now the highlight of her kit lies in her co-ability, increase light damage by 20%. This is an instant include on any light DPSer. This will give you a 13% damage advantage over somebody that doesn't have Peony on their co-ability bench. Plain and simple. It's honestly probably the best thing to come out of this FEH2 Collab banner. Summon her just for this co-ability. Chain co-ability is just okay and grants 6% defense, so it'll give your lead a little bit of extra bulk. That's 1% higher than what we had before. Okay, so I'm just going to go over her first ability because the other two are pretty self-explanatory. Aid of the something something far. It has a hella long effect, so let's break it down into pieces. First, it grants the team a life shield equals to 20% of the user's max HP at the start of the quest. This shield is the good shield. It works the same as Grace's where it will block afflictions as long as the shield doesn't break, so that is useful. Although the shield is granted at the start of the quest, so in regards to things like high Zodiac trials, the shield is only really useful for mitigating damage, at least for now. Secondly, using skill 2 will grant the Empowering Dreams effect. This allows Peony's next 4 strike to fill 40% of team members' skill 1 skill gauges. In addition to that, they are granted 10% strength, 10% attack speed, 20% defense, 5% shadow res, and 5% movement speed for 10 seconds, so even more team buffs. Again, stronger teammates equals a better Peony. Do note that Empowering Dreams can only be used once every 20 seconds, so you cannot just keep spamming it. Regardless, it's a decent ability. Honestly, even though Peony does grant multiple amounts of team buffs in her kit, the values on them aren't exactly the best. Her kit is kind of like a mix of everything, small buffs here and there while also dishing out decent damage. Also her co-ability, we cannot forget about that, it adds 20% light damage. Collectively, if we add everything together, then she becomes a pretty good unit overall. So Peony right now, she's looking like her main purpose is to be on the bench to be used just for her co-ability, which isn't a bad thing because her co-ability is quite strong and it's unique. Nobody has a co-ability like that in this game so far. One of the main concerns I had when we had the co-ability update was I was worried that we were going to have to start summoning for co-abilities instead of for characters, and look where we are. Luckily, Peony herself is pretty good. Again, she doesn't deal much DPS on her own since a lot of her damage is coming from buffs. She also inflicts paralysis, so she's basically a perfect support character for most light teams out there. Just a really solid unit all around. She's like top DPS right now among light units if we take into account her buffs. With that said, she's going to become better when light sparrows are released because stronger teammates equals a better Peony. If there's one unit that you should get from the FEH2 collab in terms of like meta usefulness, then it's definitely Peony. And yeah, that's gonna be it for this FEH2 Banner Part 1 review. The next one's gonna be on Tiki. Not sure if I should wait until her bugs are patched because, you know, she has a lot of things wrong with her at the moment. I might just do the Expert Cielo guide first. I'm not sure yet, but I'll think of something. Anyways, let me know what you guys think of these 2 units in the comments down below. Also, let me know if you guys managed to summon them and how much Wormite did it cost ya. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you guys in the next video.